silly as the power of the people's vote. And I think the people should use it to vote for... Say it again! Let me hear it one more time!
Okay, so in this series of videos, as I said in the introduction, I'm going to try and make the case in more detail for None of the Above as a serious political campaign. There's going to be 3, possibly 4 of these in total. In this particular video, I want to explore the potential that None of the Above has for inclusivity and unification of people from a wide range of very disparate walks of life. And once again, there's a few strands to this. So the first one is unifying activists around the world, and I use both of these words in their broadest possible sense. So by activists, what I mean is not necessarily people who are out on the street with placards or blocking gates or whatever it might be, but people who are working in some way or another to try and make life better for people. And so, you know, just to give a very few examples, you've got people working to alleviate child poverty, anti-war protesters, environmental protesters, people looking to live communal lives, you know, sustainable communal lives, AIDS and refugee workers all around the world. Just to give a handful of examples, I mean, Charles Eisenstein in his work points to this idea that all of these people are in fact on the same side. These are individuals and small groups of people working to help others, basically, and there are potentially hundreds of millions of these people around the world, but because, you know, each individual or small group is doing their own thing, they have very different voices. They're all campaigning for or working for very different things. Even within a particular activist community, like I mentioned in the first video, I'm part of the resource-based economics movement, and even within that there are dozens, possibly even hundreds of individuals and small groups and a couple of larger groups working in their own particular way towards bringing resource-based economics into the world, but they disagree on how best to go about doing that. And you know, so some think it's about education, others think it's about political campaigning, others think it's about creating the systems and, you know, working independently of the existing structures and institutions, and they kind of fall out with each other even though they're all on the same side. 2 things to this: all of these arguments go away under None of the Above because they can all agree that, well, whatever particular route we think to bring it to public awareness, NOTA, remember, is all about creating a forum in which ideas can be discussed, and so it accomplishes that. It's also something that can run us alongside and does not conflict with what people are already doing. So all of those people that I mentioned before could continue doing what they're doing because that's what they care about, but they could also campaign for and manifest and convince other people to vote for None of the Above. You know, I'm voting None of the Above because, and this is in recognition of the fact that all of these people, all of these campaigners, all of these activists, all of these aid workers are only having to do what they do because of the shortcomings of the systems that we use to organize ourselves. And so things like extreme poverty when there's plenty of food to feed everybody, things like millions of people dying of AIDS when there's plenty of medication to treat everybody, things like the continued unsustainable extraction of resources year in, year out, getting more and more intensive, doing more and more damage. All of these things are forms of pollution emitted by our systems into the rest of the world, and I'm going to go into this in a lot more detail in a future video. But the point anyway, the overarching point of this first bit, is that having all of these disparate groups, all of these disparate individuals, weakens the overall message that this is not working, we need something different, we need fundamental re-evaluations, we need fundamental structural changes to the way that we do things. I think it's also worth mentioning Extinction Rebellion, and this is a very recent example of a successful popular movement, successful in the sense that it got a lot of play in the media, a lot of attention, and they did 2 things very well. Firstly, they had an excellent organizational structure where, you know, once people had been recruited to the movement, they had a sense of ongoing involvement through training sessions and simulations and education and so on and so on. But even more importantly than that, they had a single message that everybody got behind, you know, that the government needs to do something immediately about climate change, and these are our 3 demands, and that's everybody was on exactly the same page. And so I think it's worth noting as a recent example the power of a single message rather than a disparate one. Lots of people, lots of different concerns. The second part is this. I mean, this varies significantly from country to country, but, you know, let's say for the sake of argument that some 30% of people don't vote at all at elections. And I think it's reasonable to assume that in large part that is because they just can't get behind any of the candidates. And I mean, I know lots and lots of people who do vote, but they're not particularly happy about who they're voting for. It's just the choices they're presented with, there's nothing there to get excited about. And so I think for all of these kinds of people, none of the above again could be an umbrella under which these people could stand, because it makes their vote meaningful again. You know, instead of wasting a vote on somebody that you hate, or wasting your vote by not voting at all, or wasting your vote on some party who in a constituency-based system has absolutely no chance of getting a representative in Parliament, you could be part of something bigger, something meaningful, something that could bring about actual radical long-term change. So I think this could be very exciting to a lot of people and could bring a lot of people into the none of the above forum, if you like. And if it is also used as a place in which the problems that face us can be honestly and openly and properly examined for the first time, and where solutions, radical ones, really, you know, out there ones, can be at least considered and used as a starting point to develop things that are more realistic from, you know, this could be very exciting to a lot of people. And then the third part to this is that I think none of the above could actually be the beginning of healing for us as a society. I mean, I think most people would agree that we are a seriously fractured and divided and at war with itself society at the moment. And despite what I said earlier about people falling out about little things even when they're all on the same team, I think coming together under something as simple and direct and powerful as none of the above, and having that be successful, could lay the ground for the kind of collaboration which at the moment we simply don't see in the world. And don't get me wrong, I'm not underplaying the difficulty of this huge conversation that needs to be had. It's going to be unbelievably hard, and there's going to be people arguing and falling out with each other all the time, all the time, all the time. However, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be having it. We must have it. It's absolutely essential. And yes, it may be chaotic and confusing for a while, but in the long run, this is the only way where we're going to create a world where environmental activists are no longer necessary because we are no longer abusing the environment, where anti-war protesters are no longer necessary because we no longer find it necessary to go to war with each other, where poverty workers are no longer needed because there is no more poverty. And so that's about it for this video. There are probably 2, maybe 3 more to come, but for now, thank you very much for listening.
The only thing that's silly is the power of the people's vote. And I think the people should use it to vote for... Say it again! Let me hear it one more time!